they said it's free to come in at the Mint, and you get to do a tour through the whole place and watch them, print money. But the way the Mint is, you're up in the air, like in a hallway. It's a factory, but you're up in the air, and it's got windows and stuff like that. And then sometimes the workers will have a piece of cardboard and they have something written on it with magic marker, like "Hello, how you doing?" or whatever, and they'd hold it up. And but you can look out different windows and see them printing different types of money. And I thought that was interesting, so I told them when they said it was free and you can go in. I told them I'm going back to the Mint because while I was over there, it's a long drive to get to Texas. So while I was over there, I wanted to enjoy the time I was there, And then he was like, "Man, I wouldn't go over there because," he said, if you touch something or whatever, they're probably gonna be guards, swarm you and stuff like that. I was like, "Man, I'm sure you ain't gonna be nowhere near the money," you know what I mean? But he didn't want to go because he just thought, I don't know what he was just thinking a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So I was like, "Well, man, I'm gonna go." And so I actually went over there by myself. But it was interesting because you do the tour, and then it's got once you go through it, it's got different places where you could read about how people had got caught counterfeiting money and what kind of money they counterfeited and all this. So it's educational and it was interesting, And then after you go through the tour, you can actually you end up in like a gift shop. And then the gift shop's got all different kinds of stuff you can buy. You can even buy money that's not cut yet. It's like on a sheet, and it's real money, but it's just they print on like a 40-inch press. If you're familiar with any presses that print, it's like a 40-inch press, and it looks like an old school press. Really, it don't really look, state of the art kind of deal. But you could buy them sheets of money for a certain price, but it would be the price you'd have to pay would be not a whole lot more than what was printed on the paper, but above, and they'd have like all different kind of keychains, coffee cups, T-shirts, all that you can buy and stuff. So I checked that out, bought a few things there. Then I had left, and I know when I was there, I wanted to go to a steakhouse because I figured in Texas they probably got the best steaks in Texas, and they did have, because I had went to a steak restaurant and it was the bomb, and it was pretty good. The bill was pretty good too. It wasn't too bad, but for a steakhouse, I think it was like, because the way me and my partner did is like he would pay for some, and I would pay for some, stuff like that while we was there. So it was him, his old lady, and his 2 kids, and then me. I think I paid like $230 because I wanted to go to the steak restaurant, and they're the type of people that when they go on vacation, they want to, get the best deals and see what, stuff like that. But when I'm on vacation, I want to have a good time and stuff like that. So if it was up to them, they would have wanted to go like to Chinese or something like that. And we actually did go to a Chinese when it was their turn. But I just wanted to try out the steakhouse because I knew it was going to be the bomb, and it was pretty good. But, back to Detroit. In Detroit, there's a lot of interesting things over there, and one thing is just being in the vicinity of Trumbull Avenue, Livernois, Woodmere, Fort Street, Grand River, Michigan Avenue, Joy Road, Woodward Avenue, downtown. When I lived on Woodmere, it's right next to the Woodmere Cemetery. I was working for a paint shop on 9 Mile Road. So, and I didn't at this time, I didn't have a car. So what I used to do is I'd get up, I worked on a day shift, and I was the painter on 9 Mile Road, 9 Mile and DeQuinder. They got like a little cafe there, and right behind the cafe was the paint shop. But anyways, I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dead winter. I did it in the summertime too, but in the winter it was rough because you had to get up 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, I always like to get up, take a shower and stuff like that, drink my coffee, and, you know, be ready. And so I would leave the house, walk down. I lived on Homer in Woodmere. So I'd walk down Homer to Woodmere, which is about a block. Then I'd go down Woodmere to Fort Street, which is about, I'll say 4 blocks maybe. And then there's a liquor store on Fort Street. And it's a brick building. It's got the parking lot right in front of it. But anyways, their doorway sets in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet. So when it's like, you know, 5 degrees, 0 degrees, whatever, it's cold. And you got to actually dress warm if you live in Detroit. But anyways, I used to go to that liquor store, and I would wait there on a city bus. And then the bus would come, I'd get on the bus, I'd ride the bus all the way to Woodward. All the way downtown to Woodward. Then I would get a transfer. Then I had to walk across the street on Woodward to the bus stop and catch a bus all the way down Woodward to 9 Mile Road. Then I get another transfer and get off at 9 Mile and then get on a bus and go straight to the paint shop. And in the summer, I would walk down 9 Mile Road. It's a long walk, but in the summer, I would walk it. But in the winter, I would take the bus. So there's 3 buses there, 3 buses back every day. And that was just real rough in the wintertime. But then I had found a car for sale. And I told my boss, I said, I need to borrow some money to buy this car. And then he told me, it was my supervisor, and he told me, he said, well, let me call the owner, and he's at another paint shop on 10 Mile Road. And he said, I'll see what he says. So he calls the owner. The owner tells him for me to come over there at that shop on Friday. So I go over there, and I go in his office. I talk to him and stuff like that. So he loans me the money to buy this car. And then he said, you know, I'll take a little bit out of your check every week. And then at this point, I was able to go back home, buy this vehicle. It was a Chrysler, I believe it was a Chrysler Diplomat. It was a 2-door. Had a sunroof. It was a fairly decent ride. And I had bought that. And I put some house stereo speakers in the back seat. Because back in them days, everybody wanted to have a good sound system, and that car had a good sound system. And actually, where I got these stereo speakers was from a dude They lived on Junction, and I had traded them a necklace for these two big speakers so I could hook them up in my car. And I remember one time I was going down Cecil, and I had a friend with me, and we had the music blasting, and I was coming out a side road onto Cecil, and then there was a state trooper there. And we had this music, we had the windows down, the music was real loud. So I actually had pulled out, because I didn't see the state trooper until I actually pulled out. When I pulled out, with us having that music so loud, he pulls me over. And then he pulls me over, and at the time when I had bought the car, it already had a tag on it. So I was going to register it, but the guy said, you can use that tag until you get it registered or whatever. So I was like, all right, that's cool, you know. But anyways, they pulled me over, and then I, you know, gave him my driver license, stuff like that. And he said, you know, that tag don't go to that car. And then I explained to him I had just bought the car and stuff. And then he said, you're going to have to take that tag off. And this is what the trooper made me do. He made me take the tag off. Then he said, bend the tag. And the tag is, you know, it's pretty strong. A tag's strong, you know, so you got to bend it. And then what he's wanting me to do is, I think he was messing with me, to be honest with you, because he kept having me bend it, you know, and it wouldn't break in half, but I kept bending it. And then, you know, he said, just throw it in the trunk. And he said, you can't leave with the car, you know, y'all going to have to leave on foot. So me and my friend had walked up Cecil and got to Michigan Avenue. There's a McDonald's up there. And we ended up going in, eating McDonald's. And then we was trying to decide how we was going to get the car back home, you know. And tow trucks wasn't even they was a thing back then, but nobody was going to pay money for a tow truck. You know what I mean? It ain't like today where if you break down and stuff, first thing you're going to do is like call a tow truck. But anyways, my friend said, well, I'll tell you what, we can go back and get the car and just put it behind your dad's house, because my dad had not lived pretty close to where the car was at. And then he said, then after you get it registered and everything like that, then you'll be good. And I said, that sounds like the best plan, you know, so that's what we did. And he was asking me, he was like, why'd you pull out in front of a state trooper? I said, I didn't see him until I already made the turn. And I didn't think nothing about it, you know, because it had a tag on it, but come to find out, that tag didn't even belong to the car. So that was crazy. No wonder the guy said you can use the tag until you get it registered. But that was crazy, you know. A lot of crazy incidents happened over there. I remember one friend of mine that's lived on Otis in military. He had I want to say like a 64 Impala. And I liked this car, but it wasn't like, you know, a showroom car, but it was in good condition. It wasn't wrecked or anything. It was been sanded on. It had primer on it, and you know, but it was in good shape. And his brother told me he always wanted that car. I believe it belonged to their father, but their dad ended up giving it to him. And we used to cruise in that over to Trumbull Avenue sometimes, over to Mark Allen's house. And but anyways, one day he comes around the corner, and I'm living on Hammond at this time. This is Hammond and Otis, right off of, you know, it's about 2 blocks off of Livernois. but it's Hammond and Otis, and I'm staying around there, and he comes around there one day, and he's like, "Hey," and I got a truck at this time, and he's like, "Hey, can you tow me?" Because back in the days, I don't think you could do it these days, but back in the days, people used to tow each other all the time with like a rope or a chain or something like that. And then he was like, I was wanting to know if you could tow me to the junkyard because I'm going to get rid of this car. And this dude had got rid of this 64 Impala. And it wasn't wrecked. It was all intact. But it wouldn't run for some reason, but it used to run, so I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe the motor blew up and he just didn't want to fool with it because he was just going to junk it and get some money. And I only think he got like, I want to say like $75 or something like that. He might have got 125, but anyways, I was like, "You sure you want to do that, man?" He was like, "Yeah." And so I said, "Yeah, I can do that." So I towed him over to the Gary's junkyard. He was the big junkyard in the area, and we had took it down there, and then he paid him. And I just thought that was crazy because today that car would have been worth some money. Cause somebody would have paid a good penny for that car, whether the motor be blowed or not. Because basically all it really needed was like a good paint job on it, and somebody probably would want to redo the inside or whatever, but it was fully intact, a pretty decent car. And me and his brother used to park behind their mom and dad's house, and sometimes we would just talk. We'd get out, talk in the backyard, have a few beers, whatever. And that's when he was telling me about that car. After I told him that I towed it for him to the junkyard, and he was like, "Yeah, man." He said, "I always wanted that car, but he was the oldest, and my mom and dad gave him the car, and then now look, it's in the junkyard." And I was like, "Yeah, man. Sometimes things go like that, so you know." But he told me a lot of things. Me and him were pretty close, and we hung out a lot. And he told me one time he had got put in jail, and he was running with, I think it was three of them in the car, and they were just doing things, in the Detroit city years back, where just things to hustle money, stuff like that. Well, anyways, the police had got behind them, and one guy bailed out the car, and then him and the other guy had pulled over, and the police had took him to jail. And the reason they took him to jail, because one of the guys had a 410 gun in the car, but it had like an armrest that you could pull down and raise up and down, and they had the armrest all the way up, but they had the 410 kind of like shoved down the armrest between the seats, and they had went to jail, and then his bond was kind of high. He was telling me, and then he said his mom and dad had a bunch of electric guitars, bass guitars, a bunch of musical instruments. So I guess they played music back in the day, whatever, but they had a lot of stuff. Then there was this dude, this old man, and he had lived in the neighborhood on Military. And they asked him for the loan so they can get him out of jail. And then he gave him a loan. I don't know if I don't think, because I know this guy, I don't think he asked him for collateral for the money, but they ended up taking a bunch of, guitars and all that to his house just to let him know that he can hold that until they pay him back. But so anyways, the dude loaned him the money. He got out of jail, and then he ended up having to, go to court and all that. They ended up paying the dude back, and he gave him all their instruments back. But he ended up having to go to jail for a while because of that gun. Because I think him and the other guy got charged with it. The other guy bailed, and he got away. But later on, if you've been watching my videos and stuff like that, the guy that bailed, he ended up getting killed later on. And so, and usually if I'm talking about some of my friends or whatever back, in the days and stuff like that, they're no longer around. You know what I mean? So, but what it is, it's my life stories, things that happen with me and my friends and stuff like that. And, and the way my friends was, they wouldn't give a shit if I was talking about it on YouTube or not. They just didn't care. But anyways, that's what, he was telling me that story, what had happened. And I thought it was crazy, And, but he was a good guy. And, like I said, me and him used to run together in Detroit and stuff. We did a lot of stuff, hanging out, stuff like that. And he would tell me some stories, though, about things that happened with him and stuff like that. And he also told me stuff about, what happened in his family and all that, it's this crazy stuff. And, and he was cool with his brother, but the thing was, he just said that, he just felt like his mom and dad just mainly did a whole bunch of stuff for him. And he told me that kind of he couldn't get his mom and dad to do much for him. But then I was like, well, what about when they got you out of jail and they borrowed the money and and all that? He said, yeah, they did that, but he said, he talked like they didn't even really want to do that. So I was like, oh, okay. So, he was just telling me that, they just favored the oldest more than they did him. And I guess it was just bothering him. So, when me and him would be around, he would tell me about it. And, just, I guess to get it off his chest or whatever, But, he got along with his brother and all that. He was just telling me, when his brother wasn't around, that, his mom and dad would just favor him over him. And he just thought, that wasn't right or whatever. It should have been like 50-50 maybe or something like that. And I was like, man, sometimes that's how it goes, dude, because, you just never know. Some families just would do more for one child than they will the next child. And sometimes you got people in your family that, people will help some of your siblings, and when it comes to you, you can't even get, a cup of coffee or anything. So it just depends on how stuff rolls, because I told him, sometimes you just gotta go with the flow and I told him basically, man, you just don't expect nothing. Even though it's your parents, don't expect nothing from them. If they want to help, they'll help. And if they see you going through a hard time, sometimes you ain't got to say nothing, and they may help you. you know. And sometimes it may not, you know, I don't know, you know, because, you know, and some people don't even say the kind of stuff they're going through because they don't want people to know the situation. But I'm sure that any parent with their kids, no matter if their kids are telling them they're having a hard time or they need some help or whatever, or if they're not telling them, I'm sure parents could identify if their kids need help, whether the kid asks them for help or not. I'm sure, you know, parents could, you know, because me myself, if I could tell if my kids need help or if they just trying to hustle money, you know what I mean, stuff like that. So, you know, that being said, it's just, but that dude was a cool dude, but he just had a lot to tell me, you know, and I'll get into some of them stories down the road, you know, because a lot, you know, a lot of things had happened. I remember on John Kronk in Livernois, when I first got to that neighborhood, on the weekends, people used to get together and race cars down John Kronk. And then people, there's a train track right next to it, and they have like a wall because the train track sits up in the air, and then a lot of people just line up on that wall and stuff. And what they would do is try to block off the road. It's like a quarter mile or a little bit longer, and they would block the road off where two cars could actually race down through there. And they did that for a while, and I don't know if they did it for titles or just money or whatever, but they did that for a while. Then they ended up They quit doing it. So I guess they got stopped by the law, and the law ended up making them stop racing. But that was an interesting thing they did on John Kronk back in the day, you know. And then there was a lady that lived in that neighborhood, and she had like a club that was on Military in Michigan, and she was like a big time baller or whatever. And one time I'm in the neighborhood, and her son, I'm with her son and a few other guys, stuff like that. And this old man, he comes riding through and he hollers at her son, and he's like, "Hey, where's your mom live at? Because I owe her some money." And then he looks at me and he's like, because he was like smoking weed with the other people and stuff like that. So he was like, "Hey, Slick," he said, "why don't you go and show him where my mom lives? Because he owes her some money. He's going to pay her." So I was like, all right. I didn't even know this cat. He was just a real old gentleman. And so I said, all right. And I got in the car because it's only like 2 blocks away from where we was at. And he goes over there and he pays her. I walk up to the porch with him. I kind of like standing by the steps, and he walks up on the porch. She's sitting on the porch, and he's got like $1,800, and he pays her. And then she asked me where her son was, and I told her that he was over there on Otis, and she gave me $20, and she said that guy's gonna give you a ride back to where he got you at, and I was like, all right, that's good. So actually, I just made $20 just for riding 2 blocks. So that wasn't that wasn't too bad. That was pretty cool. Because I used to run around with her grandson a lot, and also ran around with her son too, But that was interesting. But anyways, be looking for the next video, and make sure you get them likes up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Support the channel. Many stories to come. I hope it's interesting to you as much as it is for me. So stay tuned and be looking for the next one. I'm out. Peace.